Welcome, everybody, to the May 21st County Council meeting. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance by John White and followed by roll call.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Klinghammer.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Here. Thank you. First order of business is the conditional use permit, bill number 4540. I'm looking for a motion to take that off the table.
Motion made, sir.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Next, I would like to get a motion for a substitute bill.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend Bill number 4540 and replace it with substitute Bill 4540.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So folks, I want to explain this tonight. What we're voting on is the finding of facts for the conditional use permit for the trash transfer station. The finding of facts is to deny a conditional use permit for the trash transfer station. So council members voting yes, they're supporting the denial, which is the finding of facts. Let me explain that one more time, and I'll make it real simple this time. A yes vote is no for the trash transfer station, okay? So with that, please read the bill.
Substitute Bill number 4540, requested by Council as a whole, sponsored by Council as a whole, an ordinance adopting findings of fact and conclusions of law denying application for conditional use permit CUP 1711 for a trash transfer station by Metrofill Development LLC property owner.
Any discussion from the council? Hearing none, please read the bill and we'll have a roll call vote.
An ordinance adopting findings of fact and conclusions of law denying application for conditional use permit CUP 1711 for a trash transfer station by Metrofill Development LLC property owner. Councilmember Cronin.
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel.
Yes.
Councilmember Elam.
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond.
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander.
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer.
Yes.
Councilmember White.
Yes. Next, I would like to request a 5-minute recess. Give a chance for the crowd to participate. We have other business to discuss. If you'd like to stay, you're welcome to stay.
The transfer station's officially gone.
Hey, you can just tell them it's done.
Hold it.
Tell them that it's over. That it's done. That they want to know what's next. Do they know that?
They'll figure it out.
That's the best laid plans. What do you do?
How are you? Good to see you.
Bill, how you been? Good to see you again.
What's your name?
It's the right decision.
for any single topic. If you have another topic to talk about, feel free to come up if you filled out a speaker card. So with that, I'd ask for the first speaker card, please.
And this is on, subject is Bill 4583, the Research Park. First speaker against, Arnie Dienoff.
Do you want me to wait a moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can everybody hear me? It's loud out there.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members of the County Council. My name is Arnie A.C. Dienoff, public advocate and county resident. First thing I'd like to bring up is the maximum occupancy of the room is 180 people. We had well over 225 people in this room, which exceeded the maximum person capacity. It's in violation of the county safety and occupancy codes of our codified code of ordinances. It's in violation of the state fire code, and I believe that the St. Charles City Fire Department has been notified of this. It's wrong that the county council didn't find a bigger venue to accommodate us, the people, who count and matter in this, rather than big business and money. When is St. Charles County going to undertake or understand that we, the people, we matter and we count? We want to preserve our county, preserve our open spaces, and our zoning that's currently intact. Money buys power in St. Charles County. Money buys power in the county executive's office. Money buys power and access at the county council. Money buys results, money buys greed, and money buys zoning. Who is NS Home Builders LLC? We, the people, would like to know. Mr. Whitaker proposed not to own the property, but is only managing the project for NS. A look on the registered State of Missouri Secretary of State website doesn't give any names, but an address at 8909 Ladue Road in St. Louis, Missouri, 63124, coming and doing business in St. Charles County. My question is, did you, the county council members, listen to we, the people behind me, who want this project to be nullified and voted a resounding no on the rezoning, and that the county purchase the property with the more than $50 million that we have in our park reserve fund for park open space? Who has the Whitaker family and NS Corporation donated to on the county council? I look at each and every one of you in the eye and would like to know who from the Whitakers and NS Corporation have donated to your campaigns. Who has donated to the county executive in his race for re-election from NS Corporation or the Whitaker family? Council members have an obligation to uphold the zoning code. Our comprehensive plan clearly states that this should be zoned agricultural and not rezoned residential. There was a resounding no from the public, a resounding no from municipal governments surrounding the research park, a resounding no from the Katy Trail Association and other associations across St. Charles County.
Time's up, Mr.
And a resounding
Dienoff.
no from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Please vote no
Mr.
on this
Dienoff,
proposed
time's
ordinance.
up.
Thank you.
In support, Kevin Hoag.
Good evening, Councilman. I'm here representing the University of Missouri System in support of the NT Home Builders rezoning application. By way of the university's prior letters to the Planning and Zoning Commission and appearance before this council, the university has expressed its support for the proposed development and continues to support this project as a unique housing alternative for the Missouri Research Park and St. Charles County. Designed to be both thoughtful in its intersection with the companies of the research park and responsible in its impact on the Missouri Bluffs Golf Course, Weldon Springs Conservation Area, and Katy Trail, Mr. Whitaker's development team has gone to great lengths over the past several months to engage with interested parties and refine the proposed plan to optimize the project and further mitigate its impacts. It remains our opinion that the proposed plan offers a lighter impact to the subject site, golf course, and neighboring lands than future development alternatives, such as multifamily, light industrial, office, or lodging. Now, maybe more than ever, the university is being challenged to find creative ways to fund the university's core mission of education and research. Proceeds from the sale will be reinvested back into the university to support the university's strategic priorities. This council's decision will materially impact the university's interest in this property and will directly or indirectly shape future development of the land. I want to conclude by thanking you for the opportunity to address this council. The university appreciates your time and consideration given to this important project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Against, Janet Kolb.
I'm Janet Kolb from Weldon Spring. I was able to speak to the planning and zoning. This is the first opportunity I've had to speak to the council. I wanted to bring up some past history that we had in St. Charles. Some of you would probably remember the racetrack that we had in Harvester. It was a very popular thing that was going on in the mid-50s and the early 60s. And then the housing development started coming to St. Charles, and developers decided to build around the racetrack. Now, these people who were buying these homes certainly knew there was a racetrack there. It was quite evident. That doesn't mean they were happy about it. And they constantly contacted the owner and complained, and the councilman. They wanted the ordinances to change. They wanted the lighting to change, the hours to change. They didn't like the dust. They didn't like the traffic. They were very unhappy. They won out when the owner of the project took his life on that project, and it was sold. Now, in this case, on the Bluffs situation, the representatives have said they will make these homeowners aware before they buy a house that they are in an industrial park, and that there are companies that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, lighting, noise, trucks running up and down. And there's also a sanitary sewer plant there that does the same thing as far as hours and so forth. On top of that, it also has a problem at times with smell. I love hiking up there. I can attribute to that. They do a great job of trying to contain it, but it is not always containable. Sometimes it can be very offensive. So there is also the issue that they will be hauling out dried human waste on the same streets that these people will be accessing to get into their subdivision. Now, I'm thinking, isn't this why we have planning and zoning? Isn't this why we have different entities like light industrial and residential? To separate the two so that we don't have future problems that can occur like they have in the past. Thank you.
Next speaker.
In support, Charles Caverly.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Charles Caverly. I work for Native Landscape Solutions. I was here last time we got together. I wanted to just remind you about conservation development. I talked a lot about it last time. It's a concept that's been around for almost 40 years now or more, and it's been done in many states across the country. Alaska, Illinois, Minnesota, Massachusetts, Ohio, and so it's a technique it creates an interesting marriage, a marriage that we don't typically hear about. It's a marriage between preserving and maintaining rare or open space and development. And so across the country where you see these practices taking place, it takes place with kind of a joint venture almost between the idea of preserving and maintaining facilities and preserving those spots in addition to allowing very limited unique development. And so there's 4 principles of conservation development. The first one is preserving those unique areas. The second item is stormwater mitigation. The third item is maintaining or using only native plant material. And as you know, we talked about last time, there'll be no turf, there'll be no lawns on any of these sites. It will all be uniquely native plant material for all the landscapes and all the yards. And then the fourth item is invasive species. Last time I was here, I talked a lot about the perimeter of this site, the highway right-of-ways, which are loaded with calorie pears. If you can't remember what calorie pears are, they just got done blooming snow white all over the right-of-ways. Honeysuckle, Serratia lespedeza are the 3 big ones right now in the state that a lot of communities are really going after and fighting. I would tell you, I just learned the other day that the Missouri Department of Conservation at Bush Wildlife had gone to the point of spraying honeysuckle, bush honeysuckle by air because they have such an infestation on their 20,000+ acre facility. So when I was here before, we talked about this project being different, about it being unique, and that's exactly what it is. It's an opportunity to marriage 2 interesting components, the preservation of land and the unique development style and using native plant material to solve and create a unique living space. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. No applause? Next speaker, please.
And against, Connie Burkhart.
I'm a co-founder of the Katy Land Trust, which is a 501c3 that advocates for the preservation of the natural scenic beauty along the Katy Trail and has published books and magazines to promote tourism and economic development tied to our natural assets. And when I graduated from law school in 1999, I practiced land use law. And then finally in 79. And in 1999, I was appointed to the University of Missouri Board of Curators, serving as president of the board during a very tumultuous time for the university system. For all of these reasons, I desperately wanted to speak to you tonight, and I would limit my comments in these 3 minutes as curator emeritus, but having spoken to other past curators on the issue before you. As you know, the university owns property throughout the state, acquired through state funds or entrusted to us through gifts and bequests. During my tenure, I hoofed around many cattle farms as we wrestled with what to do with the acreage that had been gifted to us but was no longer needed for our ag majors. We kept the spirit and intent of our donors in mind, respecting their generosity and their love for the university. And I'd like to ask, which of the curators has walked this property, as many of you have? If any of them had done so, they would be as distraught as we are about the golf course development proposed on this fragile river bluff. If any of them had had the opportunity to learn about this property, its history and context, they would not put you in the position they've put you in tonight. Why? Because one of the roles of a curator is to be the eyes and ears of the university, to protect the system from ill-advised, irreversible decisions. Curators don't allow the system president to walk into a buzzsaw like the public hearings that you've had here. We help him avoid local controversy. Here's an example some of you may recall from 6 years ago. A new system president came in and shuttered the university press. It was a publication with a long history, shut it down for financial reasons, fired the director, and let everybody go. The uproar across the academic world was unrelenting, and the decision was walked back completely, so the university press thrives again. It was an unforced error and embarrassing, and as curators, we must talk to the president about wide-ranging issues. We've talked to him about athletic scandals, about race relations, and about issues that have a greater local impact than can possibly be perceived in Columbia, and this is an issue like that. As a former curator, I respectfully say to you, if any part of your vote tonight hinges on your inclination to help the university, set that aside. Forget that. It is not your job to ignore your own master plan and override the 8-to-1 vote of your Planning and Zoning Commission so the university can sell this property. With your no vote, the university can go back and do what it should have done at the outset. When they decided to sell, where was the RFP soliciting conservation organizations to buy and preserve this land? Where were the competing offers for a premium price for this unique property? Where was the language from the legal department to protect the bluff, or the input from the School of Natural Resources on erosion, or the strategy from forestry or from sustainability? As a former curator, I can tell you that the university didn't do its job, and they've made yours extremely difficult. Sustain the vote of P&Z. Send the university back to the drawing board. This is a fragile bluff. It's time to call theirs.
Thank you.
The sixth speaker in support would be Brad Goss.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Brad Goss, 120 South Central Suite 700, St. Louis, Missouri 63105. I want to highlight some changes that have taken place in the plan since we last met. I did give you a written handout that you can refer to at your leisure. The changes that we've made in this plan have been significant, and they've been at the urging of various council members and members of the public, and we've responded. So as a result, the smallest lot that was in this development was 7,500 square feet. We've increased that minimum lot size to 15,000 square feet. The number of single-family lots was at 289 single-family lots. It's now been reduced to 235 single-family lots. As a consequence, the density of this project is much, much less dense than it was before when you had last seen this project. This plan indeed is a far different plan than what the Planning and Zoning Commission looked at, where we started with nearly 400 units on the site. We're significantly below that. We have, in addition, we have met with Zoltec, and we have an agreement with Zoltec regarding their property. We've put common ground around the entire Zoltec site. We've added substantial landscaping around their site as well. It's 125 trees and different native plantings that will go around that site, in addition to the trees that already exist. Furthermore, what we have done is we put a non-disturbance buffer around the entire site. The property next to the spur trail, the property that is next to the Department of Conservation area, and the Katy Trail is then below that. We've added a non-disturbance buffer. And we already had a non-disturbance buffer along Highway 64, the 11-acre tract that made the site impenetrable. So this is a site that will not disturb the view of the Katy Trail, and is indeed false when people say that we're going to be developing on top of the Katy Trail and affecting the Katy Trail, and that there will be runoff to the Katy Trail. What we've put into our stormwater covenants, not only are we complying with the stormwater regulations of the city of St. Charles County, we're also providing other stormwater measures to retain the individual stormwater that would come off of each house. This development is unique. We've done a lot in order to conserve the site. That's why we do have Chuck Caverly on board, because he is a botanist, and he's working with us to restore the site, which some of my opponents have described as a dead site because of the number of invasive species. So those are the major changes that we provided. One other, we've also changed the declaration of covenants, so these conservation restrictions cannot be removed by the developer. That was a concern that was also raised, and so we've made these conservation restrictions permanent. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, I would like, with respect, to ask that this proposal remain on the table in order that we can continue to work with members of the council.
Mr. Goss, if this comes up off the table, then you'll have an opportunity to address the council, but your
Great.
time's up.
Thank you.
The next subject was Bill 4540, which is trash transfer. We had Michael Dickinson.
What? No.
I think we already voted on that.
Well, we
but-
had 4 cards, so I'm not sure if these people wanted to speak on it, or is Jean Carroll, or?
Is there anybody here from the trash transfer station that still would like to speak on that issue? That's submitted a card?
Okay.
Seeing none, then
Then we had one more speaker on another topic, is Bill Meinhold.
Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak to you this evening, County Executive and the County Council. I know you guys have a very thankless job, and it takes many hours every month to do that. And we appreciate it, but really what I would like to, I'm going to be neutral on everything. And if I get too straight too far, let me know. That, you know, government is established in the United States for us, the people. It's by the people, for the people, and of the people. And we would like for the council to take all of these things into consideration when you make your decisions. I know you spend hours deliberating either as a group or as individuals. And it's come time for an election. Some of you will be up for election this year. You'll have the opportunity to speak to us and ask us for your assistance. You know, that's an opportunity that we just don't want to put aside in our government. It's very important that the people have the opportunity to speak. When we talked about the transfer station, we were down at the arena originally. There was probably close to 1,000 people there, some for, some against. And I was very pleased that you guys voted yes and on that issue. And I just would really like to say in my closing statement, you know, it's government of the people, by the people, for the people. Thank you very much.
Amen.
I have no more comment cards.
Okay, the only other thing that's on the agenda is Table Bill 4583. Is there anyone that wish to pick that off the table?
Can we have conversations without it being off the table, or?
You have to remove it.
No, we have to put it on the table. So I would make a motion to remove Table Bill 4583.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Don't get too excited yet. We're going to take it off. We're going to talk about it. It may or may not come up for vote yet tonight. I think that this is exactly the process that we need to be doing, is listening to what people have said and then discussing it amongst ourselves as well. And we do those discussions, we do in a public forum. So it's not done in the back room somewhere. So sometimes this does get a little drawn out, and it's not necessarily neat and clean and in a little package, but it is the process that I think we should do.
We still haven't voted to take it off the table yet.
You're right.
I request a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cronin?
I will vote to remove it off the table.
Councilmember Brazel?
I'll vote to remove it off the table for conversation.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
No.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
Okay, it's off the table.
Well, I guess I'd like to start. On this has been a complicated, like Connie said, this has been complicated, thanks to you guys for putting in front of us. No, I'm kidding. But, you know, I have mixed emotions on this thing because of the location of it. We had our legal team look into the legalities of whether or not they could sell it. That was first and foremost. And we have to listen to our legal team on what they advise us on. So that's the first point that we had to address, whether or not they can sell it, whether or not they can't sell it. So we were advised that they have the legal right to sell it because they're the legal ownership. Now, the other parts you can get into is more of a political or principle perspective. But for me on this thing is I've always been an advocate of low density in south of Highway 40, and this county council has been actually great stewardships of the land. We changed it to a 5-acre minimum. We have land preservation ordinances. We have a stream bank protection ordinance. We have a lot of environmental issues. We took on Ameren UE with resolutions on the pollution in Labadee. Took a lot of static on it, but they did put in those air monitor systems last year. So we take on environmental issues, and we take on the preservation of land. And we have over almost 3,000 acres in parks that we started in 2000. So it can't be said that this is
about us not being environmentally conscious or us not caring about the green space, because in my heart, that's why I live in Augusta. That's why I live on 10 acres, because that's what I love. And I love the valleys and the hills and the trees. But in this case, I feel that since it's next to Highway 40, it's next to a research park, you have Weldon Spring Heights that are half-acre lots, that this, putting the legal issue aside on whether or not the university has a right to sell it when we're told they can, it becomes a zoning issue. So when we talk about the zoning on this, we talk about the high-density use of the ground that they started, which when planning and zoning passed this, it was a totally different plan. It was almost twice as many units. And so we've been working with the developer on trying to come up with something that would be somewhat of a reasonable plan. Now, you folks have to remember, being an unincorporated county, Weldon Spring, there are other options. Weldon Spring could annex them, then we would lose total control. The University of Missouri could build additional factories or whatever, and it would be under their jurisdiction. It would not be under our jurisdiction or our building department, and that's what I was told. So we have to play a chess game here. We have to figure out, if we do nothing, then what else is going to happen? Across the highway, there's 75 acres for sale in Weldon Springs, and what I'm told they're looking at is doing a high-rise, multi-purpose office building there. So if you think that that's going to save trees, it certainly won't. And so something's going to happen with this ground. So what we have to try to figure out is, how do we play our chess game, and how are we going to play it that's the best way for that area and the best way for the people in the community? I spoke to some of the folks in Weldon Spring Heights, and I told them, I said, listen, we're not going to go, and everyone will assume what we're going to do and assume what we're going to vote, but they don't have a clue, because we don't talk, we don't call each other and say, hey, can you give us a vote? We don't do that. We just talk about what we'd like to see the plan, how it would go, and what we can do with it, and what's going to be the best way to use this land. So what we talked, there were several council members met with the developer, and we twisted his arms, and we said, listen, what Weldon Spring Heights' concern was it was too dense. So what if they had a 15,000 minimum square foot, and they put the parking in, doubled the parking by Katy Trail, and they took away all the lots from Zolotech? And our conversations was, there's no way they're going to do that. They'll just back out. And so we went to them with that approach, and after negotiations and trying to work it out, they agreed to go in with a 15,000 square foot minimum lot. They have no more 7,500 square foot lots, and the average lot size is 23,000 square feet. Weldon Spring Heights is less than that, and Weldon Springs average is less than 15,000 square foot, or the city of Weldon Springs. So we're trying to do what's best for the area and what's equal. So where we're at now is this, it's just...
Hey. We're discussing this now, please. We took courtesy to listen to all of you, and I think you ought to at least give everybody an opportunity up here to talk about it.
I just wanted to have the facts.
Sir?
An acre minimum.
Sir?
Well, I'm sorry, I got that fact wrong. That's not what I was told, but we'll go with that. If it's an acre, okay, that's fine. But nevertheless, I mean, if you go to other communities, so what we're trying to do is figure out the best use of the ground, and what the rightful lawfulness of it is, what the law is. And so I think where we're at, or where I'm at right now, is we are still concerned with the density, and we're trying to get, if it goes through, and this is not a done deal, believe me, and so if it goes through, we're trying to get the developer to negotiate with us to give us much higher density. And that's where we're at. If we can get 3-acre lots or 3-acre average or somewhere in that vicinity, I think that's the direction we're going for. I'm sorry.
You said higher. I think you meant lower.
Or lower, yeah. So tonight, which we've done this a lot of times. I know you folks came up here for a vote tonight, but what we have never, if a petitioner has came this far and says, listen, to other council members, we're not happy with what you have, but would you be willing to do this? It's not fair to say, forget it, it's over, no more talk. You want to keep open dialogue to see if there's somewhere you can meet. And so I'm not saying we are going to meet, I'm not saying we aren't, but I'm saying they asked us if we would keep it on the table and give them an opportunity to come back with lower density. one last time. And I'm going to support putting it back on the table because that's what we've always done in the past, is giving them an opportunity to come back with a better plan. And so that's where I'm at.
Dave? I'm not going to belabor a lot of the same points that Joe's already covered. I'm going to kind of go in a different direction. And Keith, I'm going to ask that either you or someone from your staff answer the question of, if this ground isn't sold to NS Builders, does the university have the ability to develop that land on their own without coming to St. Charles County for either planning and zoning or for our building department to really look at their development?
The answer to that is the most recent cases speak to the fact that the planning and zoning powers of the county would not extend to the university's development. Probably the public safety, which is the building codes, would extend to the whatever development the university does.
Okay, so from that I can translate into, they could come up with another plan that goes back to what was originally proposed with 7,500 square foot, some 7,500 square foot lots and a higher density than what we're at right now, if the university wants to develop it on their own.
I think that's the logical consequence of where the law is.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is trying to find the I don't want to throw it out and say, okay, we don't want to do it at all, and then end up with a product that at the end of the day isn't what we want either. That is a concern. Now, whether or not they would or not, I don't know. I'm not part of the university system, but they did develop an awful lot of the commercial ground there now without having a development plan that was approved by planning and zoning at this level. So it has happened, and I'm concerned that it could continue to happen. Dave?
I'd like to say that I've looked at this plan, and I looked at it from different points of view. I looked at it from a building official view and somebody that's been around construction all my life, and looked at what they're proposing as far as street slopes, the slope of the hills, what they're proposing to build. And based on my knowledge and what I see on those plans, it's a nice development. What they're planning there are $600,000 to $800,000 homes. The second thing I looked at, I've been up and down that great Katy Trail many times, and if I thought that this development was going to have any impact on that Katy Trail, I wouldn't support it one bit. The other thing I looked at, I grew up in the middle of a wildlife refuge area. There was community there that we were surrounded by nature. And it was a heck of a place to grow up. And I look at this as I wouldn't want to deprive other children of the same thing, that they could live in an area surrounded by parks or nature in areas that will never develop, as far as the Katy Trail or, God forbid, bush wildlife or the Weldon Spring Wildlife Area. I've been on all of that ground. I've hunted Weldon Spring Wildlife Area. I've fished there. I fished at Bush Wildlife. And considering where this is located next to Highway 40 and well above the Katy Trail and far enough away, I don't see that as going to have an impact on it. Personally, I'm supportive of this project. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of weigh in just a little bit on two or three things here. First of all, I don't think the legal issue of whether they have the right to sell the land is even questioned. It is the University of Missouri's land. They certainly have the right to sell it and all the legal opinions that I've read from our attorney seems to support that concept. The second thing is the planning and zoning, obviously voted 8-1 against. What we hear tonight is that the new proposal, which is actually the third or fourth proposal, is far different than the one that the planning and zoning voted down by an 8-1 vote. Now, how they would feel about that now, we don't know. You know, whether the original concept, I'm looking at 259 houses compared to close to 400 originally, whether they would have changed their attitude, I don't know. You know, the developers have certainly worked hard at trying to increase the size of the lots and decrease the density. One of the things that have come up a lot is the master plan. You know, whether this follows the master plan or it doesn't. I think the master plan, at least in my years on the council here, seems that if you're for something and it's in the master plan, then the master plan's Bible. And if you're against something that's in the master plan, then it's just advisory, okay? So it all depends on where you're at on the issue for the master plan. So, but I think both sides have an argument there. One of the things that concerns me is the fact that we have not had any representatives from the Francis House School Board approach us in favor of this. Now, if you look at the development, the political entity that gains the most, at least when it comes to tax revenue, from a development like this would be the school district. They estimate as much as $1.6 million per year, up to $1.9 million a year, 5 years down the road. I would think that the school district would be sitting in that front row encouraging us to vote for this project with the financial problems that they've had. But we have not heard from them. Now, that doesn't mean that they're against it, doesn't mean they're for it. We just haven't heard from them, but you would think that they would be taking a stance. The efforts of the developers, I think, we have to applaud what they've continued to come back with us with. The question that I always keep coming back to is, can they pull it off? Can they really pull this off? We're talking about incredibly difficult terrain. We're talking about a large number of homes. Will they be able to do this and not disturb the Spur Trail or the Katy Trail? And again, I don't know that answer, but I think that the undertaking is pretty difficult. And last of all, to answer Mr. Klinghammer's question, can the University of Missouri go ahead and do this on their own? According to Mr. Hazelwood, they can. Would they? I don't know. That's something that we have to weigh when we're looking at this. I don't think that the University of Missouri would look the voters of St. Charles County and this council in the eye and say, we're going to ignore what you've recommended and go ahead and do something anyway. But I don't know that for sure. So those are my thoughts, and at this point, I think those are all things that we have to take into consideration.
Anybody else? Mr. Cronin.
You know, I really haven't liked this project from the beginning. I've made no bones about telling people that. That being said, the developer has literally jumped through hoops to try to make this thing a little bit more palatable, but it's still not something that a lot of folks want, okay? And the folks from Weldon Spring Heights are affected the most. And Weldon Spring Heights sent us a letter about a week ago asking us to table this. I think Weldon Springs Heights also has concerns about, yes, this plan's not very good, but what could happen could be even worse down the road. I would differ with Connie Burkhart's, I'm sorry, I hope I'm saying your name correct, her statement about don't factor into your decision what's good for the university. Well, that does factor in my decision some, because the fact that I have a son that my wife and I put through UMKC, I got a grandson likely going to be there. But here's the thing. We don't know if the University of Missouri is getting a fair price for this ground. They didn't seek public and open solicitation of bids. I mean, even your county government here, if we have a piece of surplus property, it has to go to a public process where we advertise for bids, we seek the highest and best bidder. So if you're really looking out for University of Missouri, maybe this thing does need to get kicked back, and maybe somebody's going to pay, would be willing to pay more for the property than what's on the table. Right now, we don't know. Rumor on the street is it's $5 million. We don't know that, okay? Maybe somebody, maybe Conservation Federation of Missouri will pay $6 million. Maybe there's a possibility the developer and the conservation group working together to make this really a stellar conservation type development. I don't know, but those things haven't been asked, and I have a problem with that, okay? So by tabling it, it does give some opportunity to discuss more things like that, because if I lived in Weldon Spring Heights, it's one of those situations you don't know. Sometimes it's better that the plan in place might be better than what could happen down the road. You've seen that with Missouri Research Park, okay? So that being said, I don't see a problem with tabling this to give more people more time to talk. And I think a dialogue needs to be placed with the University of Missouri's curators about, this is a public property. This is something that I own, you own, everybody owns, okay? This should go out to open and honest bidding, part of the public process, and let's look for the highest and best thing for the university, because they do educate our kids. That's my 2 cents.
Before I go to you, Mr. Elam, I wanted everybody to understand that this PUD, this is the planned unit development, and what that is, that's a contract between the county and that developer. What they say they're going to do is a contract with us. If they fail to comply with that contract, they're in violation of that contract, and they would be dealt with for violating that. So it's important to understand what a planned unit development is. Sir, I didn't hear you, and I don't want to hear from you, okay? I just want to explain what it is so people understand what they say they're going to do. It is a contract with the county. They can't turn around and do something else. Mr. Elam.
Mr. White, did you want to weigh in first?
You go ahead.
Okay. So I think this is a really cool development. I think this is a really unique plan. I think the Whitaker folks have built fantastic developments in St. Charles County. And I think the Newtown development was amazing. It was groundbreaking. It was something that I thought it was a really cool development, and they've been risk takers in our community. I think they're really good developers. I really hate where they want to build this, though. So I think the community is amazing. I think the idea for it is really good. And not to be a NIMBY person, but I'm going to be a NIMBY person and say, not in my backyard. I think where they want to put it is where I have a problem with it. I'm great with everything else they're talking about. And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Klinghammer's talked about before. Every time we have conversations with this developer, they are doing everything they can to try and make this more palatable to everyone involved. They have bent over backwards. We wish that when people come to the county and they want to build something, they would be as accommodating as this developer has been. They really have been amazing. So I give them all praise for that. That's fantastic. I still don't like where you want to put it. So I don't care if you want to put 400 homes or 250 homes or 50 homes. I don't like where the development's going in. I'm a no on this. I've been pretty clear from the beginning that I'm a no on this. I'm District 3, as you can see from my nameplate, and I've heard from District 3 folks in huge numbers that said no. So I didn't like it. The people I represent don't like it. Former curators don't like it. I'm not convinced, and I know it could be something worse, and we've been down that road plenty of times before with other things that have been before us. But you know, it could be something better. So you can look at this either way you want to look at it. I think if this went out to bid, if if all the letters and emails that we've gotten, if all the people who emailed us would get together and put $100 into a pot, you'd have your $6 million. You seriously would. I mean, as bad as everyone thought that trash transfer station thing was, of all the folks who cleared out of here before you sat down, I think there's more of you who have spoken out on this issue, at least in my mailbox, who've said you don't like this. I hear you. I don't like it either, and I'm a no vote. But that all being said, I think you really need to appreciate this developer and how far that he's going to try and do it. So I think if this doesn't pass, and if it does go back, I hope all of you who have been, I hate this development, vote it down, will be just as passionate and just as involved to get involved and save it. And let's get a fair market value for the University of Missouri and preserve this place, because if it does get voted down, then I think you now have a responsibility to don't go away. I think you have a responsibility to step up and get involved and let the University of Missouri system know this is what we want to happen here. If this gets voted down and you go away, I will be extremely disappointed in all the people who have reached out to me, because I think there's an opportunity for us to make that a jewel in St. Charles County and make it something really cool. So if it does get voted down, don't you dare go away.
I guess I'm last. My District 7, there are a lot of subdivisions that are on the bluffs. I have friends here tonight that oppose this proposal, and they live right on the Katy Trail, and they also look out over a proposed park that we're going to have. So I'm weighing whether, deny folks of having that same opportunity as these good people do, to enjoy the Katy Trail and the surroundings. I was here where they live, what used to be a beautiful farm, wooded farm, and now it's a subdivision. So I'm really torn, since so many subdivisions in my district already are on the bluffs. But I do appreciate the idea of tabling this and letting the two groups get together and decide what's best, the developer and you people. When I first came to council, there was a proposal in my district for a development of 590 units. And people were just as upset as you are. So I gathered together the surrounding subdivisions and the leaders in those subdivisions to come together with that developer. And they developed a subdivision that is a beautiful, beautiful subdivision called Heritage Trails, with less than 300 homes on it. So it can be done. If you people are willing to work together with the developer, you could come up with something very beneficial to your community, or you could just fight it and not let it develop. It's not totally in my hands, it's in your hands and your obligation to work with them to see what you can come up with. So I'm glad that this is tabled to give you that opportunity.
I'll make a motion to retable Bill 4583.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No. It's tabled.
So it's tabled.
There you go.
Okay, well, let's talk about the next step here, so that these folks understand what happens here. Can we do that? The next step, I would imagine, is for us to get together with the developer and see if we can continue to work with them. I don't know if it's going to change any councilman's mind. You heard the opinions here this evening from each one of them, but it may. And I think that we are going to make that effort, and what we come up with, whether it'll be a week from now or 2 weeks from now or a month from now, I'm not sure. Do you agree?
Agree.
I think that the conversation will be to try to get the density lower and see if there can be an agreement on that. And if not, then the developer will just withdraw the bill, or else we'll vote no.
I'm going to ask the council if we would consider doing one thing that a little different than what we've done in the past. And that is tell the people that are here today and I counted the other day, I've personally received over 200 emails on this particular subject, which blows the numbers out of the market on everything else. So it is obviously a wildly filed issue. Once we put it back on the table, I think that we should promise them that we're going to announce a meeting before we take it back off the table. I don't think that we should just meet again in 2 weeks and have these people not know we're going to pull it off the table or we're not going to pull it off the table. They have the right to know when we're going to discuss this again, and just to be able to pull it off and talk about it, I don't think is really fair. It requires them to come to every single meeting. And I think that we can do that. It's our meeting. We can make our own rules. So I will suggest then that we make a rule on this particular item that before we take it off the table again, we will make a motion at the preceding meeting that is our intent to pull it off, and that we're going to discuss it at that time so that people know what we're going to be doing.
I completely agree.
I'll do that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that motion.
What's the motion?
To pull, before we take any action, to take it back off the table and vote it either up or down, that we will announce at the meeting before we take it off, that is our intent to pull it off the table.
So you're saying, but that's a month. What if they come back quicker than that and have a solution?
Well, then we give people notice so they know that we're going to vote on this, and we don't vote on it. His
motion.
So was there a second to that motion?
I seconded that motion.
His motion saying you can't vote.
Okay, now it's discussion.
His motion saying you cannot vote on it next meeting. That's all I'm saying. I'm just making sure you understand.
Joe, I'll be real clear. That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yes. We cannot vote on it at the next meeting,
Which is
11.
Tuesday.
8 days from now.
Basically,
8 days from now.
Basically, you're going to announce at the meeting before we vote on it.
Before we vote on
That's
it.
fair.
I think that
Gives
we
2
owe that
weeks.
to the people here and to the people that are watching on television.
I don't see where we need a motion for that.
Just a second.
Miscellaneous, we make an announcement.
You don't do
We're
it.
You know
making a
what
promise that we
I
won't
would
do it.
rather see is let's put a deadline on this
No,
issue
you can't do that.
and set that date, and that puts the developer under a gun that he's got to come back with something really special, or we're going to go ahead and vote on it.
Mr. Brazel, how do you feel about that?
I just want to know, or Joanne or Keith, how often do we put deadlines on whatever? If we do that with everybody else, that's fine. Do we do that with other people? Put deadlines on them?
Are you asking
Or whoever can answer the
for
question.
county, or do you want to know from administration?
Well-
I don't remember us putting deadlines on stuff before, but.
You want to treat
Doesn't
everybody
mean
the
you
same.
can't.
You got to be fair. So if that's not what we do, then we shouldn't do it. However, it would be courteous to let everyone know, to give them notice. I agree with that, but you don't do that in a motion. We don't have those kind of council rules. But if you guys want to do that, go ahead and do it.
Well, what I'm thinking is, let's make it the last meeting in June that we're going to decide. It gives the developer plenty of time to submit something, or he can withdraw it and start over and submit his new plan, since it's changed considerably from what planning and zoning voted on. So I'm sure he's got a deadline he's got to meet as far as this contract goes.
I asked,
Go ahead.
in all fairness to the developer, I asked Mr. Goss what type of deadline he had for his contract. And he was kind enough to tell me he's got till July. And personally, I'd like to see this thing tabled at least until the next meeting of the University of Missouri Board of Curators. I plan on attending that meeting, God willing, okay? Because I want them to know what you all's concerns are, okay? My concerns are, a lot of people's concerns are. Okay? Additionally, if you've sent an email in opposition to the county council, you may have even got emails from me. I apologize if I bored you and I'm a little wordy, but I tried to disseminate the information to you all the best I could. I will continue to do that, okay? And that curators meeting is on the, you go to, I believe it's umedu.com, and you can see the curators meeting. The next meeting is sometime towards the end of June in Columbia. I think there's a possibility that we can have our cake and eat it too. Maybe the University of Missouri can get good money from this property. Maybe the developer can do a really exceptional conservation development, and maybe we can make everybody happy. I don't want to see a situation where you have winners and losers. In my district, I've worked really hard a lot of times, so everybody comes out winning. And that's what I think the time we have to spend will maybe hopefully accomplish. Okay?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. When we make this announcement that we're going to bring this issue off the table, that the announcement should be that we're going to be bringing it off the table to discuss it and vote on it. Because tonight we brought it off the table, and all you folks showed up, but we didn't vote on it. I think the next time we take this up, there's going to be a resolution one way or the other. Would you agree?
I would. Mr. Chairman, it might help the council to know the county exec wondered when the next curators meeting is coming up. It's my memory, it's Friday, June 22nd. Is Steve Wild here? Steve?
There he is.
It's over a 2-day period. I believe that's the correct date. 21st.
Yeah, there you go. So you have a meeting June 25th. It might be a little squeeze between that curators meeting and that June 25th meeting. So you may be talking about things sort of spilling over into early July.
Repeat the motion that's on the table. We have a motion on the table in a second.
The motion on the table is to announce the meeting prior to, for example, if you want to vote on the matter at the end of a month, you have to announce at the beginning of the month, the meeting prior, that you're going to vote at the next meeting.
Okay. I got a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? I think I was the only no, so that motion carries. So everybody will make an attempt to notify them if you haven't already submitted something to our office, either by email or whatever, please contact the county council office and talk to one of the ladies there that you want to be advised when that meeting's going to occur, where we'll actually discuss it and vote on it.
Right. It will be on the table for the next meeting, and we won't be taking action on it.
So enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.
With that, can I get a
motion to adjourn?
Oh, do we have to retable it?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Okay.